story.
Yeah.
You want to go into that conversation that you had with him about it a little bit more?
Oh, no, it was actually, I think he told you.
Oh, yeah.
He gave you permission to tell the story.
Yeah.
Which, of course, obviously we don't need permission to tell our story, but
Definitely helps.
it helped that that I kind of want to say this first before I go into this.
Absolutely.
Dad isn't a evil, horrible person.
No.
He did some evil, horrible things.
Yep. So, thank you so much for doing this with me. You're my sister.
I am your sister.
You want to introduce yourself?
I am Olivia, and I am your little sister. Your baby sister.
My tiny little baby sister.
I'm the tiny little baby sister that everybody thinks is the oldest.
Yeah. Why does everybody think that?
Because I act more mature.
Yeah, probably. Well, I think that's gonna get blown out the water here. No. So we're about to talk about some shit.
Yeah, we are gonna talk about some shit.
Yeah, and I think a good way to start this conversation would be to tell people why are we telling this story, right?
Right.
You want me to start with that?
You can go ahead and start with that.
Okay. For me, keeping this story in the dark gives it power over me. And to tell it is to release it. And then I won't have to talk about it ever again if I don't want to.
Yeah, the closure.
Yeah. And it'll help me. And maybe it'll help someone else.
And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that it'll help somebody else.
Yeah.
Because, it'll give me closure and everything. It's not going to change what happened. And it's not going to change. Doing this isn't going to change how I see myself overnight. It's not going to change the feelings that I've had my whole life because of this shit.
Yeah.
But if it can help somebody else, then it makes it a little more worthwhile for me.
Absolutely. I think there's some emotional alchemy into doing things like this too. Having these conversations about child abuse and adverse childhood experiences and bullying and all of that stuff. We're going to go into all of that, and it's not going to be easy, but
yeah. And if we don't talk about these things, if we keep them all in the dark and we hide it and we're ashamed of it and everything, it leaves no room for the next generations to be able to learn from it and change it. Because, we all know that child abuse is a cycle.
Right.
We know that it's passed down from generation to generation. And
absolutely.
And we need to stand up.
I think in the beginning of this podcast, when this started the first episode, I had a clip of Dad talking about his. I want to tell a story about my life and what we went through, and I'm kind of starting from the thing that you taught me to. You taught me to teach my kids what happened to us, so it doesn't repeat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I want to start.
Well, see, but that's not the part of the family where the negativity came from.
Right.
It was from my father's side.
Right. So Eloise.
Family where I experienced violence.
Right.
There's no other way to say it.
Violence, I know. Yeah.
Violence perpetrated by a protector upon one who needed protection.
Right.
And that was not my mother's side of the family. That was my father's side of the family.
Right.
So, if any of the negative violence, I put on my great grandfather Matthew Payton.
Matthew Payton, yeah.
Yeah, far as I know, that's where it started. I don't know what happened to him. Let me do a little summary about my dad and I.
You got it.
I've come to I have come to the point that I feel sorry for my father, that he went through that shit when he was a kid.
Right.
And he had to have gone to it and to have controlled it as much as he did, with as much violence as he went through in his life. He did a pretty damn good job, but I'm still disappointed in his and my relationship.
Yeah.
On it, as it wasn't that good at the end of his life.
Right.
And he called the shot there. So,
Yeah.
I still, the little boy in me, I love my father. And I wish to remember him in honor.
Absolutely. Me too.
And I have to get to a point where I don't feel any bitterness
Yeah.
on that. So, I mean, I control it better than I did 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also,
Takes practice.
yeah, anyway.
You may have seen it. You may not have. None of my family members, you guys, watch my podcast. They've lived it, so they don't need to watch it. Yeah. Let me scoot in a little closer here. Yeah. That's what it sounds like when I scoot now.
Yeah, well, that's what it sounds like when I do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a story of our lives. What's the story of your life? Oh, it goes like this. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're more mature than me. I probably talk about buttholes way more than you do, so fair enough.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. I can attest to that one.
Yeah. It's good. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of we're going to laugh, I think. We just did, and we're going to maybe do a little crying too, man. It's going to go all over the place with this, but there's going to be kind of caution here in the beginning before we get into this. Is like, this is going to get dark.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the darkness that we experienced, and we're going to because I think, and I know you would agree with this, that Dad was kind of the first. Dad and Mom, our parents were the first in our line to actually to cause it, but also to put a stop to it. So we're continuing their legacy.
That is true.
Right. And I think, like we were having this preliminary conversation before, and we were talking. You had mentioned that Dad had asked us to tell this story.
Yeah.
You want to go into that conversation that you had with him about it a little bit more?
Oh no, it was actually, I think he told you.
Oh yeah.
He gave you permission to tell the story.
Yeah.
Which, of course, obviously we don't need permission to tell our story, but
Definitely helps.
it helped that I kind of want to say this first before I go into this.
Absolutely.
Dad isn't a evil, horrible person.
No.
He did some evil, horrible things.
Yep.
But I know he loved us.
Me too.
And he changed.
Yeah.
I just, because I'm battling the guilty feeling for telling this because.
Yeah, because he's a good dude, and we love him very much. And I've had friends tell me in the past that they don't understand why I forgave him. And when he died, I realized I hadn't forgiven him completely, and there's a part of me that will never forgive him.
Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't mean like that he gets a pass for what he did.
He doesn't get a pass for what he did. And he lived with the guilt of what he did
All his life.
Took
it to his grave.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him constantly, I'm so sorry, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like
Almost too much.
too much. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was his guilt.
Yeah.
You know, I think he finally, when he got older, kind of owned his shit.
Yeah.
And
There's definitely a lot of growth, though. That's what you were mentioning. He did a lot of internal work on his own, and I wish he had gotten help. Could have gotten further
yeah.
with his growth, but man, what a
But
guy, huh?
what a guy. I mean,
Yeah.
for how he was raised and everything, and in the time period that he was raised, and men don't cry, men don't do this, don't go to psychologists, don't do this. You know, he really was pretty open-minded.
Yeah. Especially when you get stoned.
He'd get ridiculous when he got
Yeah.
stoned.
That guy, I love that guy. He was fun to hang out with. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Yeah. So you were saying, no, you wanted to say that before you were going to say something.
I wanted to say all of that before we got into the darkness.
Yeah, because we're not
because I do love my father.
Yeah.
And I miss him dreadfully.
Yeah.
And
For those of you that don't know, he passed away almost a couple of years ago in January. It'll be 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is, we all have to live with what we do to people. You
Yeah.
know? And
then when we die, that's our legacy.
Yeah.
And so I got to give us some credit too. We've done a lot of work on ourselves in order to get to this point. Spoiler alert, we survive.
kind of.
Yeah, mostly, like somewhat. Like
I think so.
Yeah, it could have been, a lot of parts of us died during this process, this story. But yeah, well, I think that's a great way to open this can of worms, is to with the caveat of we love our father.
Yeah.
And we respect him, and we have his blessing telling the story. In fact, he helped us. We were going to do a documentary before he got sick.
Yes.
And that's how this whole podcast started. Originally, was I was doing a documentary, and maybe I don't know. We'll see what happens when I edit all this, but I'll show some clips of the documentary.
Yeah, I think that's of Dad talking.
To see how the love in his eyes, because that was one of the things that I was talking to my therapist about recently, last couple months, about like I would look back at those old videos of me taking him to his doctor's appointment. We were wearing a mask, and like I didn't notice it then because I was too on edge every time I was around him, because
Right.
that's just how my nervous system is wired in that relationship. But I could see the love in his eyes for me, and I can hear it in his voice a lot more on the video than I did in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it's like having that kind of outside perspective from a place of safety. That's what EMDR is so great for, because it gives you that kind of therapy of like creating a safe space for you, and then being able to re-experience this stuff, which is what we're trying to do here. And hopefully this will spark some conversation in the YouTube comments or whatever, in
Right.
the podcast, because this is audio and video. So I distribute this through like Spotify and Apple Music and all this shit, and then I
Okay.
put it on our YouTube channel. So I say it's me. I'm the only one doing the editing right now. Yeah. Okay. Let's get into the thick of it, right? We're gonna start at the beginning, and then when we get to the end, we're gonna stop. Right?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Hi, this is James. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube right now, do me a huge favor and give it a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, you could rate it, you could review it, you could share it with a friend as well. That would help me out a lot. Either way, thank you very much. Jesus Christ. All right. Andy and Shirley.
Oh, Andy and Shirley.
Yeah, I don't remember them.
I wasn't born yet,
Yeah, you weren't born yet.
but I always have heard it as, and I quote, the Andy and Shirley incident.
Yeah. I was what, a year and a half?
Yeah, you were about a year and a half. You were
So-
just a little baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably you go ahead and start this because I don't remember. You have that's the thing. That's why I'm so one of the other reasons why I'm so glad that you're here to help me tell this story is because your memory of these things and these stories is way better than mine. For the just for the fact that you've done smoked less pot than I have.
Right. And I lived near mom and dad a lot longer than you
Yeah,
did.
twice as long as I
And
did.
so
Yeah.
like when I hung out with mom all the time, I miss her.
Yeah, me too.
We'd visit, we'd talk, and these are the stories that she would tell.
Yeah, because
And
I'm so glad we're doing this. Okay, so you start us off with what do you know about this?
okay,
Yeah.
I know what my mom told me
Yeah,
because
let's
I
hear it.
wasn't even a gleam in anybody's eyeball at the time. But, and I'm not certain if Tommy, our uncle, was living with mom, because I know he lived with mom and dad a few times in his life.
Mhm.
I know he lived next door to him when they were in San Jose, and I think he was living with mom and dad at the time in Corning.
Okay.
And I believe that Andy and Shirley were originally friends of Uncle Tom's.
Right. Yeah, I remember hearing that.
And so, of course, it came into their life and everything. And Shirley was a self-proclaimed schizophrenic. And she would, laugh about her vacations at the funny farm. She was obsessed with Uncle Tom. She was married to Andy, but she was obsessed with Uncle Tom. What she wanted was Uncle Tom as her husband, and she wanted you as her son. So she was very manipulative. Um, our mom was on a lot of Ativan at the time,
Right.
and I believe she may have just gotten off the booze, or she might have still been drinking a little
I
bit.
think from what I heard, if I remember correctly, she was still drinking at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was on a massive amount of Ativan
Mm-hmm.
and drinking. So she was
I mean,
kind of
Can I add to the fact add to the drinking, like the level of drinking she was at? She would say, at least from what I remember her saying, is she would wake up in the morning with the shakes, guzzling the bottle of vodka at the foot of her bed or at the side of her bed, praying to Jesus that she could hold it down, and she would puke it up, and then she would do it again, and then she would hold that down, and her shakes would go away.
and then her day would start.
That was before she even got up.
Yep.
Right. So that was the level of alcoholism that she was suffering from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was definitely suffering from
Yeah.
it. She was in bad shape.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so of course Shirley saw her as easily manipulatable.
Right.
So I don't know how the series of events came about, but they kicked Dad out.
Oh, they kicked him out. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's why Dad has a hard time, or had a hard time, forgiving people.
Yeah.
And Andy lived somewhere else, so Andy wasn't living there. So eventually she just got Tommy and Mom and you together, and I don't know for how long. But the way she manipulated Mom was she took her pills away, she took her booze away, she would feed it to her when it suited her. So
when positive reinforcement, kind of puppy training
control.
shit. Yeah, control.
That's how she controlled Mom.
Oh, wow.
And she convinced Mom that Dad was an evil son of a bitch and to leave him, to kick him out. And so she did. And so I don't know,
I mean,
I don't think he was at the
No,
time.
not at the time.
He was working, he was working and taking care of his brother.
Isn't that the irony of the situation, though?
It is the
Right.
irony of the situation.
All right, continue. I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. But yeah, so I don't know how long that this went on, but it was just insanity. Mom didn't really talk too much about any of the goings on during the time in the house, just about how Shirley controlled her and stuff.
Well,
And
she probably doesn't remember a lot.
I'm sure
Right.
she didn't.
Yeah.
But they were driving one day. I'm not sure the time frame or how long this was going on, but she just felt led to go talk to Dad. And Shirley didn't want her to, but she did.
Did she have like a religious kind of experience or something?
She did.
Yeah.
I didn't
Mom would
know.
have a trip like that. She had multiple spiritual experiences throughout
Right.
her life, and it like still kind of sticks with me. And it's probably part of why you and I are more spiritual in our adult lives now, right?
Absolutely.
A
Yeah,
lot
she
less-
was definitely in tune.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I'll tell it how
Yeah.
she said.
Yeah. Please.
I didn't know if we
I'm
needed
not.
to
We're,
separate church and state
no.
right
No.
now, but
No. Not at all.
so God told her
Mm-hmm.
they were driving by where the driveway of Andy's house, because I think that's where Dad was living. He was like staying there or
Yeah.
helping
That seems
Andy
like
or
they
something.
kicked out the men that they didn't want, and then
Right.
she almost got her way.
She got her way for a
Yeah.
minute.
She had to have Mom there because she didn't really want to raise me. She just wanted the
Yeah.
idea of me.
Yeah.
I'm a catch.
Apparently.
Anyways.
So against Shirley's wishes, she went there and found Dad, like I think working on Andy's truck or something with Andy or something. And they talked and decided to get back together, and so they kicked out Shirley and swore from that moment on that they weren't going to let anybody get in between them.
Yeah. And they almost did. Like they had a habit of bringing in weird couples. There's
Oh my God.
right. There's like Bob and Pat. Remember them?
I do. Look,
Go ahead.
their shopping list.
What's that?
Oh my
Okay.
Okay. So these guys, I love them. I think they might have, been a little special needs or something. But so they'd get food stamps and they would buy like steaks and all the food that we weren't eating. We never could afford that kind of stuff. So they would, like, for the first half of the month, they would just pig out on all this wonderful food that they bought with their food stamps. And then they would literally come over to our house, Pat would, with a shopping list. And mom would give her our commodities, a shopping list of our commodities.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
So yeah, just some crazy shit,
Interesting.
dude.
Yeah.
And Mom would let her.
Yeah.
And then Dad got mad.
Yeah.
He was like, "These people are using us."
Yeah.
And so Dad like put his foot down and made Mom stop.
Yeah.
Like but they'll be hungry. Well, no, they won't, because maybe they'll spend their food stamps a little wiser.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be nice if they'd bring us a steak?
Yeah, totally. I know. All right. Well, and then there's the other ones, but we're not going to talk about them because their children are our friends, and
Yeah.
those they just had a habit of attracting weird couples.
Weird couples.
Yeah. Anyway, so Andy and Shirley, so Mom had a vision from God that told her to get back together with Dad, and they did. And I have my only memory, or maybe it's a memory of a memory that I have of it. I remember. Was Dad working then? Where was Dad working at that time? Was he at Sunsweet?
He might have
Because
been
this
at
was
Sun-
Corning, huh?
Yeah, it was Corning.
Yeah, because I remember Mom holding me, carrying me. I had to be real young, and I was excited because I knew we were going to go see Dad. And then I saw Dad at work, and I remember seeing these like big old fucking things, like kind of on like being wheeled.
He welded on those. He kept those. That was the fruit bins.
Yeah. Okay. So it felt like, and in my memory is more like an emotional memory, and not the only. And so I felt excited I was going to see Dad. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and then a little scared of what was happening behind him, like in the
because it would be noisy.
Yeah. But it was very exciting. So that was, that's a very vague. That's one of my first memories, though, and it had to have been around that time. Maybe it was about 2.
Yeah, it was around that.
Because
that
they were
time.
probably separated for what, 6 months or something?
I think, yeah, I'm not certain on I can't remember the exact time, but I do know that Mom always said that God probably told her to get back with Dad because not too long after she got back with Dad, she found out she was pregnant with me.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Ta-da!
ta-da!
So one of the things that when we're talking about trauma and stuff like that, one of the things that trauma is, one of my favorite definitions of it is by a guy named Dr. Gabor Mate, and he says trauma isn't just what happens to us; it's what happens to our bodies as a result of what happens to us, or what didn't happen to us. So there's already that trauma. And he likes to tell a story because he was raised in Hungary during World War II, during the Nazi occupation.
Right.
He was really young and he doesn't remember this, but his mom had to like hide from the Nazis, and so she left him for 2 weeks with this stranger, and didn't see his mom for 2 weeks, and from that, like it developed into ADHD,
Wow.
in his life later on. So. There may have been genetic components to it that nature and nurture going on there for him, and he didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until he was in his 50s.
Right.
Right. And he was a family practice guy. And so the whole thing is like a lot of people who are like not aware of that as trauma are kind of missing that definition, I think, of like what didn't happen to you. What did you need? As just a mammal, a creature in this world that all mammals need, like that connection to provider, that
Right.
and so that can be traumatizing too. And basically, what ends up happening if our provider attachment gets threatened, then we start changing our behavior in order to make sure that we don't lose that attachment. And changing our behavior is another way to say we're being inauthentic, right? So. So that neglect was happening to me before you were born.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I already started out like, because Mom kept that picture. Maybe I'll show it. I still have it in my storage room of that old cigarette stained fucking picture of me, right, from the 70s. And it's maybe similar to this era.
It is similar to
Yeah.
that era.
Yeah. Yeah. Little baby James right here.
So, yep, that's the one that was irresistible.
That's
Had to have them, she did.
Yeah. This was after my first haircut, right? No, this is before I had long hair. So the one that has me with a mullet that she would keep up on the wall. So that way it was a reminder of what not to do. No more drinking.
Yep, no more drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, she was ashamed of herself because you were in such a state of disrepair that, like Aunt Susie would come in there and clean you up and
Yeah, do the things that Mom couldn't do because she was all pilled out and drunk all the time. Huh? Yeah. So, yeah, I don't remember any of that, but my body does, is what I'm saying, right? So let's start there, right? Like, okay, that's challenging, right? And then you were born, so they got back together.
They got back together, and I now see. I now I don't understand. I don't know when Mom quit drinking. Because she said she wasn't drinking when she was pregnant with me. So at some point in that, I think she stopped drinking.
Yeah.
And and she did it by herself. She didn't do it through no program or anything
Right.
like that. You
Right.
know, she had that strength to just do it because she didn't
Yeah.
want to do that to that.
That little boy, yeah.